It's a strange time for anyone still following Bungie, bereft of nearly all the original team and creative output, resulting in... Reminds me a lot of Zombie Simpsons. Nothing so terrible that you entirely lose interest, but neither does it hold up against its predecessors. I'm sure a similar fate will befall the upcoming Marathon game, an extraction shooter reboot likely containing a narrative so tangentially related that lore channels will be squeezing blood from a stone. This isn't 90s Bungie making the game, it's a different entity. It's also part of the reason why I haven't played any of the major Marathon mods despite loving the original trilogy. Starting 30 years ago, the story of Marathon 1 and 2, closed out by Infinity, was so perfectly done that fan continuation attempts feels, without disrespect, unnecessary, and fanfiction lore is brain poison. Instead, sometimes intrepid fans take an existing setting, gameplay and themes, and weave in their own ideas with such loving reverence for the source material, you have to take notice. The total conversion mod, Apotheosis X, rivals any Marathon game, or really any boomer shooter, except completely free and fully customizable through the LF1 source port. Apotheosis X was almost finished back in the early Audis before being abandoned until rebuilt by the same modders several years ago. Now a full 8 to 12 hour campaign across over a dozen maps featuring new sprites, textures, enemy types, and an original storyline and soundtrack. Aside from looking great, it plays really well, only getting better level to level thanks to skillful map and combat design, pushing the archaic engine well beyond anything I've seen. If you want to jump in, it's as easy as downloading the latest version of LF1, the scenario pack itself, and a HUD plugin. Gotta love the simplicity. Taking place after Marathon 2, seemingly treating its ending as canon with humanity on the back foot amidst its war with the Fall. The fighting has reached a stalemate over the Fortress Saruk's colony, one of the last bulwarks before Earth, until a couple human battleships warp out, investigating a signal around the planet Fenris. You're seemingly another Mjolnir armoured soldier that's woken amongst one of these vessels, under attack above the new planet. Initially, you're tasked by the commanding AI Noah and supporting Daria to secure a beachhead on the surface, clear several 4 command posts, and upload Noah into the planet's mainframe. Amidst the fighting, you might start wondering why you're even at Fenris when so overmatched, and what's so special about a mundane mining operation. Then you start noticing the monolithic architecture, strange noises coming from the dark, and now Noah's message is, confusing. Now realizing you've woken up something, and it's angry, seeking vengeance. Without explaining much, Apotheosis' story is good, feels like an amalgamation of Marathon 1 and 2. Your ship comes under attack, you and the human forces assault a mysterious planet, and you're directed by the friendly AI Daria for most of the game, comparable to Leela in the original. The events of the prior games are occasionally referenced, a nice detail being the absence of the Svikkur, the projectile-shooting robed guys, since the liberation of their homeworld in Marathon 2. They're replaced by the Virals, that function the same. The story is solidly paced. There's plenty of escalating action against the Four, followed by quiet time where you'll explore Fenris, solving simple puzzles and reading cryptic terminals and flavor text by one of the AIs or the Four garrison. These are written well, there's enough lore to chew on, and the artwork's nice. There were actually a couple genuine oh shit moments in the clever set pieces and interludes. It's not comparable to Infinity's Electric Sheep's Mind Melts, but it does fit within the Marathon's universe's themes and tone of fate and destiny. The story, and the whole mod to a great extent, wouldn't be as engrossing if it weren't for the quality presentation on offer. It keeps the familiarity of Marathon's floating movement, ubiquitous switch flipping, and combat trappings, yet it's so much more. There's custom textures for almost everything, oranges and reds replacing the common blues and black colour palette, giving a strikingly warmer tone for the enemies and terrain. The chunky industrial aesthetic is described by the lead developer Hypersleep as cassette futurism, a distant sci-fi future reliant on analog technologies before our modern digital era, Blade Runner and Alien being the most popular demonstrations of this. It's best seen on the planet-side maps, which utilises LF1's lighting and fog to incredible effect when exploring expansive interiors and towering brutalist structures. It must have been a painstaking task to replace the textures while retaining the recognisable feel of Marathon. The maps inside 4 ships offer lightly luminescent blues and purples, reminiscent of Halo 1's Truth and Reconciliation level. It feels very nostalgic. Environmental storytelling was pioneering in Marathon. Apotheosis continues this brilliantly. There's also nice setups whenever introducing new enemies or story plot points. It's dark and quiet, you're low on health, and start seeing shadows whip past. Hard to talk specifics without spoiling the payoff. The soundtrack is of special note, 1.5 hours of wholly original music, perfectly fitting each level. a distinct mix of deep, thumping electro-industrial beats and somber ambient wails. It fits the aesthetics and creates a mood almost hauntingly beautiful at times. The lack of music throughout the trilogy was one of my only significant gripes. Seeing not only the inclusion, but also being quite good, makes Apotheosis' high points that more special. Aside from the great story and presentation, the level design is equally impressive, pushing the engine far beyond anything else in depth and scale. For the mid-90s, marathon maps were new in their rationalist approach, especially in the second game. Very few nonsensical corridor mazes. Apotheosis maps are at least double in size and either follow a linear progression you move through or loop around, but you'd think it was running on the build engine and how spacious and creative the maps become. The first couple levels are fairly basic grey metal interiors until you climb winding valleys leading to overlooking towers, space stations you'll fight across, and jungles that descend into deep mines. Mission objectives are typically hitting buttons, unlocking doors, reactivating computers, and destroying machinery. Terminals offer objective markers on the maps in case you get lost, although I didn't have that issue. Often, I felt reminded of Unreal 1's exploration, especially when we'll see the map's endpoint. Reaching it and turning around to see the progress made is quite satisfying. You'll quickly notice the hexagonal tiling in the outdoor maps. It gives Fenris a very alien vibe, especially when the wildlife starts attacking you from their honeycomb-like dens. Surprisingly, there's no swimming sections, except for one vacuum level, which was so cool, I can't spoil it. You'd expect after all of this, the actual FPS gameplay would be an afterthought, except it's thankfully not. There's easily hundreds of enemies in a level, waiting to be teared through, the game occasionally referencing your player's bloodlust, and all it's missing is additional gibs. The four offer the original assortment of lightly armed troops, armored enforcers, and powerful juggernauts, now with updated sprites and animations. New roster additions are drone swarms, the aforementioned virals, Fenris' wildlife, and bladed assassins that slice through your shields, made more troublesome whenever pinned down. There's also rare, high-powered robots, whose infrequency makes their appearance a good, unexpected challenge. You do have occasional human allies, which are less than useful, although their Mjolnir armor does bear a striking resemblance to another franchise's. Across Apotheosis' campaign, you're expected to overcome the legions of 4 troops by using a solid arsenal of 8 weapons. The dual-wieldable impact pistol combines the standard magnum and energy gun into one, decent if not for the inability to manually reload. The battle rifle returns as the basic workhorse, including the secondary grenade launcher. The 4's napalm cannon remains unaltered, it still kinda sucks. The rocket launcher feels a bit less powerful, but its ammo is far more plentiful, and the large clusters of enemies makes its splash damage very useful. The arc driver is the game's shotgun, easily burning up 2 or 3 enemies at a time and great in tight spaces. The rail driver is the first truly new inclusion, a powerful railgun that breaks through multiple enemies and great at long range, as long as you turn on a crosshair. Then there's the Banshee, a fast-firing energy gun that knocks down drones and armored 4. It's the only hit-scan weapon and works great for crowd control. Finally, the endgame Astra rounds things off as an overpowered, over-recoiled kill-everything gun. I did find it slightly bugged in that you need to shoot it near enemies rather than directly at them to cause significant damage. Each weapon is supplied at just the right time to turn the tide or spice up the combat a bit, usually before one of the intermediate arenas pitting you against waves of 4. They cap off a section of the storyline and showcase Apotheosis' combat system nicely. The variety of enemies and a mix of melee and projectile attacks gives combat a push and pull rhythm, where sidestepping fire and switching weapons becomes a bullet hell of sorts. It's honestly better than the original games, as the wide, laid out spaces, different weapons, and generally higher skill ceiling creates a light combat sandbox of sorts. No large battles play out the same way. Only tweak needed is faster weapon switching. An important decision is what difficulty to play on. Apotheosis is definitely harder than the prior games. Higher and tougher enemy count, the fixed save points, and limited shield recharge points that rarely go beyond one level makes deaths frequent, especially in the last few levels. Firefights can get absolutely chaotic. However, I'd still suggest playing on major damage. There's always enough shield canisters and ammo stockpiles throughout the maps, and save points at the start of a level or before a big fight. The occasional 2x and 3x canisters allows more aggression and a nice reward for thorough exploration. It was annoying how spongy some enemies are against your heavy weapons, yet the intensity just felt natural and ultimately better winning against the tougher fights. As a free, decades-developed spanning mod built upon one of the OGs of the genre, it's unnecessary to nitpick Apotheosis when the alternative is another live service PvP soft reboot whenever, if ever, it comes out. It may be bold to say, but Apotheosis is perhaps the closest sequel to Marathon. From its gameplay and storytelling and general attention to detail and polish, I think it carries on the proverbial torch. It's been interesting seeing the slow resurgence in Marathon's popularity over the last several years, be it retrospectives, lore expositions, or the soon-to-be Marathon Classic reaching Steam. After 30 years, it's inspiring seeing the long-standing passion and support from Marathon's community, a testament to its legacy. Apotheosis X is as good as it gets for fan projects, and I can only endorse playing it and being reminded how great these games are. Now, if you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, consider liking it or becoming a member so I can make more. Thanks again for all the feedback. It's nice seeing these fantastic projects get the attention they rightly deserve.